everyone. My name is Kaimana Preza, and today I'll be talking about the truth. The topics I'd like to cover today is God versus evolution, God is science, and God is history, or God and history. So to begin with, the theory of evolution is based on the idea that all species are related and gradually changed over time. So the first claim is similarities in anatomy between humans and animals. So evolutionists like to point towards the similarities between humans and animals to prove evolution. This is false. Why? Because God created humans and animals to walk the same earth, drink the same water, and breathe the same air, and eat the same common foods. So it would be evident that we would have similar bone structures, same kind of lungs, or same kind of digestive system. And all this does is suggest a common creator, which is God. The second claim is it happened over a million or of millions of years. This is also false. Why? A good example is the Herman J. Mueller fruit fly experiment. So what happened here was due to the short lifespan, scientists can study many generations in a short amount of time, therefore replicating millions of years. So what they did was they exposed these insects to radioactive chemicals or X-rays to try to prove evolution. So they failed to provide any data and only talked about them. And this is very shocking because this experiment won a Nobel Prize in science. They also failed to prove that gene mutations were not possibly heritable chromosomal mutations. So to make this easier, an example is your mom and dad has you, but you're not just like your mom or just like your dad. You are a combination of both, therefore making you unique or different, which is what they're seeing in these fruit flies. So despite all the mutations that was happening, the fruit fly was still a fruit fly, and it did not evolve into anything else. The third claim is that dinosaurs and humans did and could not exist together. This is false. Why? Because the Bible dates from 1450 BC to 100 AD, which is there. It is evident that humans have existed then, and the Bible talks about dinosaur-like creatures. If you turn to me to Job chapter 40, verses 15 through 19. It says here, look at how the behemoth which I made along with you, he eats grass like an ox. See how his strength is in his hips and his power is in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are tightly knit. His bones are like beams of bronze, his ribs like bars of iron. He is the first of the ways of God. Only he who made him can bring near his sword. So some of the things I like to point out throughout these verses is his strength is in its hips. Tails is like a cedar. Beams of bones are like beams of bronze, and ribs are like bars of iron. So a lot of people they like to compare the behemoth to the elephant, which is not true because the very distinctive factor here is his tail is like a cedar. And we know that elephant tails aren't like a cedar. They're like small, really skinny tails compared this dinosaur to the right. Um, Also, in Job 41, it's I'm gonna just read a couple of verses from here. In verse 9, it says, "Indeed, any hope of over." So this is in regards to the Leviathan. Indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Shall one not be overwhelmed at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he could dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me? Also in verse 18 through 19, his sneezes flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mar- Out of his mouth go burning lights, sparks of fire shoot out. So, what a lot of other people would like to say about the Leviathan is that um, it is an alligator. This is also untrue because we can see here in today's time, there are people who actually wrestle with alligators. And here in the Bible, it says in verse 9, "Shall one not be overwhelmed at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up." And we can see humans today, they even go as far as to eat alligators. Um, so that is one proving evidence that it is not. Also, the more distinctive factor is the sneezing flash forth light. His eyes are like eyelids of the morning, and out his mouth go burning lights, sparks of fire shoot out. And I don't think the alligator does that. Um, that claim is also false because soft tissue was found in fossils. So paleontologists are surprised to find cartilage, blood vessels, blood cells, and bone cells in their findings. And they like to claim that it was a miraculous preservation, but in reality, it did. The extinction of these animals did not happen over millions of years ago. It happened fairly recently to our time. So, in regards to the Leviathan, is the Leviathan mythical? The answer is no. We live with creatures with similar traits today. For example, the firefly. The firefly, as you know, produces lights from its body, just like the Leviathan produces lights through its eyelids and nostrils. Also, the bombardier beetle. This insect can shoot out a chemical that is equivalent to boiling water, just like from the Leviathan's mouth, it can bring forth fire. Also, the electric eel. The electric eel has very dangerous traits, just like the Leviathan, that doesn't harm itself. Um, Also, the term dinosaur is relatively new, and ancient cultures use the word dragon. And dragons are acknowledged amongst many cultures across the globe, according to Animal Planet and Science Digest. So, a good evidence of this is they all spoke different languages, but they all had the same descriptions. And some of these descriptions were scaly, tough skin, enormous, long tails, spikes, horns, and sharp teeth. And we can see that it is evident here. And another big thing you think about dragon is flying, which can come from the pterodactyl. Dinosaurs today. So evolutionists claim that dinosaurs were too dangerous for humans to live with. So as we can see here, here are a few of Earth's most dangerous animals. We have the tiger, the killer whale, a bear, elephant, and an eagle. all capable of killing you very quickly. And what did humans do with them? We domesticated them. So, for example, we see here in circuses that um, in circuses we have tigers, bears, elephants, all doing tricks that humans tell them to do. As well as SeaWorld, we can see killer whales obeying their masters to do tricks in the water, and eagles, where you can tell them to go somewhere and you can tell them to come back. Very popular in like outdoor sports events. And in the Bible, it states here, get it to move. Sorry. All right. So in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 28, it says here, then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. And moving on to chapter or verse 28 says, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves under it. So it is evident here that God made us rulers and gave us dominion over all these animals, as it says here, because we are made in his likeness. So why is this important? Resources and entertainment like to give us false narratives in children's book, TV, educational systems, and entertainment. So for children's books, um, I can vouch for this because a lot of I read a lot of dinosaur books growing up, and I'm sure a lot of you have as well. And they try to condition children to believe that dinosaurs and all these animals existed over millions of years ago, even though it is false. Also, in entertainment, they like to try to sneak it in there, um, like small little details to, again, condition you. And especially in the educational systems where we learn in high school about evolution, and they try to make a case that it is true, but is not. And this these statements aren't true because the proof is right in front of us. We have the Bible, um, exists from 1450 BC to 100 AD, which is written by humans. Also, we are able to tame dangerous beasts, even though um, evolutionists claim that we could not exist with such dangerous animals. And we live with animals with magical type features like the Leviathan. The next point or topic here is God is science. So the Earth is a sphere. Um, Astronauts show us of how the Earth looks like from space. But before all that, long before, the Bible discovers this long before a camera even existed, not even close. How did the Bible prove this? Well, if you would turn to me to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, and it says, he sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and his people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. So we can see here the earth is a circle, and in the Bible it says the people are like grasshoppers, and we can all agree that we are very little compared to the great world we live in. Also, the Bible says that he stretches the heavens out like a canopy. And when he says heavens, he's talking about the skies. And another word for canopy is curtain. So he stretches out the sky like a curtain, and what curtains capable of doing is blocking the sun's rays from it. It changes it from being harmful to useful to our living. And also, he says here he spreads them out like a tent to live in, which is also evident because the atmosphere or the sky holds in all the gases that we need, like oxygen and CO2, to survive. Also, here in Job chapter 26, verse 7, it says, he spreads out the northern skies over empty space. He suspends it over nothing. And before like any type of space travel existed, we didn't know anything. But here in the Bible, it says that he hangs the earth over empty space and suspends it over nothing, which is true in the pictures that we see that the the earth hangs over nothing, and we do live in space. Another one is Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 5 through 7. I'll read verse 5 through 6, and it says, the sun rises and the sun sets and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows south and turns around to north. Round and round it goes, ever returning onto its course. So here we can see the spear-like features that the Earth has due to how the sun is acting and how the wind is acting as well. Also, in verse 7, it's not really about the spear, but it's more about the Earth's water cycle. In verse 7, it says, all streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, they will return again. And you see here, the streams flow to the sea, but the sea is never full because of precipitation. And the clouds bring it back up to the mountain, as it says here in verse 7, to the place the streams come from, and they return to the sea again. Another way the Bible is relevant in science is blood and water. About 3,000 years ago, bloodletting became popular. This was an ancient idea that releasing blood could cure illnesses, but this was wrong because people were losing blood and dying instead of getting better. And if they were to just refer to the Bible, it says here in Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11, for the life of the creature is in the blood, and I have given it to you to make atonement for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. So it is said here that it is referring to sacrifice, but in literal terms, it says in the beginning, for the life of a creature is in the blood. And what these ancient doctors could have seen here is that the life is in the flesh is in the blood, which possibly could have saved many lives. Also, sanitation practices were stated in the Bible. In Leviticus chapter 15, verse 13, if you're there, I will read it. When a man is cleansed from his discharge, he is to count off 7 days for his ceremonial cleansing. He must wash his clothes, his clothes and bathe himself in fresh water, and he will be clean. Also in Numbers chapter 19, verse 11 and through 13, it says, whoever touches a human corpse will be unclean for 7 days. They must purify themselves with water on the third day, and on the seventh day they will be clean. But if they do not purify themselves on the third and seventh days, they will not be clean. If they fail to purify themselves after touching a human corpse, they defile the Lord's tabernacle. They must be cut off from Israel because the water of cleansing has not been sprinkled on them. They are unclean, their uncleanness remains on them. So it says here that these are like ancient practices of sanitation. You can see here in Leviticus 15:13, um, when a man is cleansed from discharge, it says here he must wash his clothes and bathe himself in fresh water, which is very much useful today. Also in Numbers chapter 19, it says that they must purify themselves after touching a dead body on the third and seventh day. But if they fail to do so, they will be cut off from Israel, which is like almost like a quarantine, like we're doing what we have been doing in the past days. Because God's seen here that if they do not clean themselves, they will only spread like the illness around Israel, so they must be cut off. So then the last point here is the Bible and history. So some background information about the Bible is it dates from 1450 BC to 100 AD, like I said in the past slides. That is over 1,600 years of information. It has 66 books. I don't know where you can find a book that has that many books. And it also has 40 writers, all varying from kings, shepherds, tax collectors, and more. And they all spoke different languages. And how many contradictions were there? There were 0. So when it comes to predicting the future, the Bible is very accurate. I like to say predicting the future, but the term is prophecy. So here in this is for more of the modern times. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 3 to 4, it says, "For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths." So this is very evident to today's time because, as you can see, there are some leaders out there that support sin, even though the Bible talks about the truth. For example, Obama legalizing same-sex marriage, even though it says it's wrong in the Bible, the people appointed leaders that made them hear what they wanted to hear. And this is a result to this prophecy. And in the more historical terms, in Tyre's End, we'll read in Ezekiel chapter 26. You turn there with me. So in chapters 4 to 5, it says, "They will destroy the walls of Tyre and pull down their towers. I will scrape away their rubble and make her a bare rock. Out in the sea, she will become a place to spread fish nets, for I have spoken, declares the Lord. She will become a plunder for the nations." Also in verse 7, it says, "For this is what the sovereign Lord says, from the north I am going to bring against Tyre, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, king of kings. with horses and chariots, with horsemen and a great army. And lastly, in verse 12, it says, they will plunder your wealth and loot your merchandise. They will break down your walls and demolish your fine houses and throw your stones, timber, and rubble into the sea. All right. So, according to historians, King Nebuchadnezzar was the first to attack Old Tyre, and or to attack Tyre, and what they would do is they would attack Tyre, but Tyre civilians would flee on boats to Tyre Island that we see here to the right, and they would just wait out whatever was coming to them until like they were done, and they would go back to the original place of living. And according to historians, the next invader was Alexander the Great, and he did exactly what King Nebuchadnezzar did, and the people of Tyre then again fled to the island. But Alexander the Great was not satisfied with this. So what he did was he scraped everything off of the rubble and the ruins of old Tyre into the sea and made a man-made land bridge that we see here on the bottom right. And in the Bible, it says here, um, in chapter 20, Ezekiel chapter 26, verse 4, starting verse 4. And they shall destroy the walls of Tyre and break it down. In verse 5, it shall be a place for spreading nets in the midst of the sea. And also in verse 9, he will direct his battering rams against your walls, and with his axes he will break down your towers. So that is exactly what they did. And it also says in chapter 26 that they would dump all their belongings into the oceans. And it clearly states here in verse 5, it shall be a place for spreading nets into the midst of the sea. And we can see here that the land bridge, the man-made land bridge, was put out into the sea by Alexander the Great. And before that, they would need to like use boats to access or cast nets into the sea. But now it is evident that they can go out into the middle of the ocean without doing so because of this bridge. So with that man-made bridge, he went out to conquer the remains of the people in Tyre, on the Tyre Island. Another evidence of this is the fall of Babylon. And in Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9, it says, for I will stir up and bring against you, or bring against Babylon, an alliance of great nations from the land of the north. They will take up their positions against her, and from the north she will be captured. Their arrows will be skilled warriors who do not return empty-handed. Also in verse 38 says, a drought on her waters. They will dry up, for it is a land of idols, idols that will go mad with terror. And in chapter 51, 36 to 39, it says, therefore, this is what the Lord says. See, I will defend your cause and avenge you. I will dry up her sea and make her springs dry. Babylon will be a heap of ruins, a haunt of jackals, an object of horror and scorn, a place where no one lives. Her people all roar like young lions. They growl like lion cubs. But while they are aroused, I will set out a feast for them and make them drunk, so that they shout with laughter and then sleep a perpetual sleep, declares the Lord. So again, according to historians, what happened was King Cyrus of Persia would, I'll bring up the pictures here. So this is where Babylon is. And what they did, and this is what Babylon structure was like. So the Euphrates River would um, run around and through the city of Babylon. And they had these great walls, and the only entrance you could possibly go through is to the water. And what King Cyrus and his army did was they made a basin that directed the water away from the waterways that goes through the city of Babylon. And it said here in the Bible that the Lord will dry up her seas, her waters. And this is evidence of what happened. So what they did was, because there was no water going through Babylon, they were able to go through the waterways and invade the city of Babylon. And it all historians also say that they had a great feast and they were all drunk and taken by surprise during this raid. And the Lord says here, they will sleep a perpetual sleep. And if you translate, or another synonym for perpetual is never ending. And when you die, you sleep a never ending sleep, as the Lord says. So why God is the ultimate truth? If God did not exist, why do we have good morals? Well, God gives us purpose. In Matthew chapter 25, verses 35 through 40, it says, "For I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick in prison and go visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whether you did for one of these least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." So we can see, and in verses 42 through 45, he basically states the opposite to the unrighteous, because they did not do these things to their brothers and sisters. Um, so we can see here that God gives us purpose because through the things we do, we serve Him. And also, atheists have more blind faith than we do. They believe in events that happened over hundreds of millions of years ago with weak or no evidence. And they believe that something came from nothing. But we have the Bible that is both historically and scientifically accurate. We can see God, we can also see God through His creation. So the big takeaway here is that the Bible is the truth inspired from God, and in it withholds no false information. Therefore, believe in God and do as He says in the Word. Thank you.